Canada's biggest school board is being forced to move hundreds of teachers out of the classroom to support online learning. The Toronto District School Board made that announcement yesterday night, sending out a letter to parents. The changes will affect up to 324 elementary schools, and some schools could lose up to 4 teachers. Classes will have to be reshuffled. The board had to make the move to provide teachers for more than 65,000 students who are enrolled in virtual learning. The online program has struggled with a lack of teachers since the school year restarted just a matter of weeks ago. The date for reorganization completed by next week, the 13th of October. That's the information we have so far, but let's bring you more information. Ryan Bird is with us again this morning. He's the spokesperson for the Toronto District School Board. He's joined us before on this issue, been very forthcoming. So, Ryan, I'm delighted you're able to be back with us this morning. Although I'm sorry, you're here to talk about yet more disruption.
Yeah, this is honestly, it's something that we undergo each and every year at the TDSB, but obviously this year is unlike any other year we've experienced. Typically, we try to essentially adjust the staff to where students are, and sometimes that's in another school. This year, though, we have the virtual school. With more recent switches, we're up around the 80,000 mark now, just over as of next week with students. And as we've discussed, we desperately need teachers on the virtual side. So that's why we are moving some teachers from our bricks and mortar schools into the virtual school.
Okay, so can I just jump in? Let's get those numbers again. I just mentioned 324 elementary schools affected by all of this. And did you say 80,000 students now? That's what we're talking about in terms of the number of students. Is that just elementary, Ryan?
No, overall, that's elementary and secondary. On the elementary side, we're probably around 64,000.
Okay, so that was the area that you said was really the challenge in particular. And so we're talking about moving, is the number that I gleaned from reading elsewhere, 500 teachers have to be shifted?
Yeah, just over. So about 570 teachers on the elementary side will be shifted from in-person over to virtual. And that's not only to address the students that need them on the virtual side, but on the in-person side, we have classrooms that should hold about 24, having 8 to 10 students in them right now. Unfortunately, we just don't have the funding nor the number of staff to maintain that in the long run.
Okay. The number of, there are a lot of numbers, and I want to come back to the students critically in just a second, but when you say that number of 570 teachers that have to be transferred, the last time we spoke, if I'm not mistaken, it was around 500 that you said you were going to have to transfer, and you were going to be able to do that. You had the numbers, but it was just taking a long time to work through the logistics of doing all of that transferring. But we're still talking more than 500 teachers. Is something not adding up? I mean, do you simply not have the number of teachers to do this?
Yeah, no, the 570 that are being shifted into, many of them will replace some current occasional or supply teachers that are running those classrooms. So it's not just that we need overall 500 teachers, but we do need teachers, but we also have to move our staff to where the students are. In this case, we're moving some of those permanent staff over to the virtual school to fill in on a more long-term basis where occasional teachers are currently leading the class.
How many students are affected by this?
It's hard to say, Heather. Right now, we know the number of schools impacted, we know the number of staff impacted, but because of the classrooms, different configurations, it's definitely thousands of students that will be impacted, but it's hard to really put a number to it at this point in time.
But for those students, okay, obviously we're in the thousands. What is the impact in their classroom situation going to be then? What are they going to see?
So for some schools, you might see just one teacher moving from the in-person over to virtual. Some may be as high as 4. Some may see no change at all, but they will see a change in teacher. They may see larger class sizes. Right now, we have, for example, a class that should be able to have about 24 students in it with 8 to 10 in some cases. We just don't have the funding or the staffing available to maintain that for the entire year. So what we may see is combined grade classes, combined classes. So maybe instead of 2 classes of 12, you now have 24. Either way, we're still maintaining our targeted class size caps that we've talked about since the beginning of the year, but we just can't continue at the current level.
Okay, so you are still confident you're going to be able to stay within what is deemed safe in the classroom setting to allow for physical distancing?
Yeah, and we've been working closely with Toronto Public Health on this. They know that this is a necessary step that we need to take to reorganize our classes. So their advice stays the same: maximizing physical distancing as much as possible, use of masks, hand sanitizer, and hand washing. So we'll be continuing that. We'll also be cleaning in between the different cohorts. As as new cohorts are created as a result of this reorg, we will be cleaning our classrooms, obviously, making sure we keep the proper data so we know who's where and when.
As I used the word before, disruption, new teachers, new cohorts, new classrooms. What do you say to those students and their parents as they face more upheaval so early in the school year, Ryan?
Yeah, we know that this has got to be frustrating for some families that are either still waiting for a teacher, which this will solve, but also that maybe they got the school year off to a good start and now may have to change teacher. We realize this isn't ideal, but I would ask that they please understand that we literally have students right now who haven't started yet. We desperately need these teachers on the virtual side and need to be able to support all of our students everywhere, both on the virtual side and in person.
How many students haven't started yet?
Right now, we've managed to reduce that significantly, but I still think we're probably around the 1,000 mark. The difficulty is that it changes each day as we bring teachers online, and then we do have teacher resignations as well. So sometimes there's setbacks, but we are actively moving through this, and we believe by doing this reorganization, we should have our virtual school classrooms up and running next week.
Really? I mean, with the numbers you're talking about, that seems almost like a lofty goal. I mean, maybe unattainable.
Well, 570 permanent teachers being moved into the virtual stream. We really do think that should alleviate most, if not all, of the issues. Obviously, we still have a shortage of French teachers, which is an ongoing issue, but we're actively making sure that we get a teacher. Might not be speaking French right away as part of French immersion, but we need to get everyone teachers yesterday. And that's why we figure that this reorg will help us do that for next week.
Ryan, I appreciate your joining us again to continue following the story. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather.